high gain tones. It might sound simple and you might think maybe I just turn the gain up and we're good. And yeah, sometimes it is like that, but sometimes it requires a little bit more work, especially in the modern age where everybody's like really good at tone making. So today, my friend, let's make a high gain tone. Amor lanzasing now. We break it down, baby. Sorry, I'm still getting over this horrible cold, so you're gonna have to bear with me and my horrible voice today. Okay, let's go. High gain tones have never been easy to make, but back in the day, it was way harder. Just think about it. If you remember like all these like early 70s or like 80s bands that were not like super high budget, they all had like this particular garagey sound, like very like, I don't know, like papery and boxy. And you can remember bands like Venom, I don't know, even Slayer when they were starting out, or even Metallica. Point being that high gain tones have always been really hard to get down when you record them. And I feel like a lot of it is because when you're in that room and you feel that high gain tone, man, it's really nice. So very easily you can like overlook a bunch of stuff that maybe when you put your headphones, or maybe when you're recording the sound, and maybe when you're putting it on tape, or maybe when you hear the record after the fact, all mixed and mastered and everything, and you think, wow, this record sounds terrible. And yeah, sometimes it might be the record that sounds terrible, but sometimes, my friend, it's just that you haven't paid that close attention to how your sound is because you're so excited to play. And don't get me wrong, it's great to be excited to play. That's why you are a better guitar player than I am. And if not, just keep practicing. You're gonna get there. I keep telling myself that. All right, let's keep going. All that to say that making a high gain tone requires a few steps, and it requires sort of like backwards thinking sometimes. But let's stop the talking. Let's go get a guitar. Today we're gonna be using my Gibson Les Paul Studio. I love this guitar, so we're just going to be using it today. All right, so here we are in Amplitube 5, and this is just like the default tone, which is like a Marshall-esque kind of sound. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, like, as you can hear, there's like a little bit of like a reverb, right? Like, and it's not really a reverb, but it's the hole where this actual cabinet is. So let's go right here in the room. And it starts by changing to the large studio just because it's the one that I really like. Feel free to experiment and listen to the one that you like the most. But we're not really going to rely too much on that sound, and I'm actually going to mute it for now, and I'm going to mute the secondary microphone as well. Mainly because sometimes you hear a guitar tone and you think like, oh, Amplitube doesn't sound like that in your face, like I want it. And it's because you have a lot of room sound in it, like I just showed you right now. And that's very nice, especially when you're like practicing and you want to have a little bit of like a stereo effect, like you're actually in the room. Especially if you're using like the standalone version of Amplitube, which is like a stereo. But when you're, for example, trying to play a part in a song and you really want it to be in your face, the more room you have, the less in your face it's going to be. So we're just going to take it out of the way. And all that we're going to have left is just that 57. Okay?
For now.
Let's hear it. And yes, it is very underwhelming. So let's just go to the next step and change the amp. We're going to go right here. And right now we're using that like Marshall-esque, but we're going to go to my dual rectifier that I love. I don't know why I have such a big affinity to a dual rectifier to make a high gain tone, but feel free to use whatever you want, my friend. All right, so here we go. And this is where we are right now. So we're already way closer, right? And that's why these amps were so good for high gain, because you just plug your guitar in and you're pretty good. But of course, we always want more, and that's why we have pedals and EQ and everything, right? All right, let's go check my settings. So right now we hear this, right? And to me, this is the default setting that my Mesa Dual Rectifier shows up. I don't know if it's different from me that it is for you, but let's just check the settings like specifically so that you can maybe copy them if you need them. Right, so here we go. The presence, I'm just pushing a little bit more than halfway. Very importantly, I'm turning the master down to 2. And I don't know if in your case it's going to be the same, but that's how it is in mine. And if I did it, then good job to me. And if they did it, good job to IK. But there it is. That's all we need. Then gain, I'm pushing to 7.7, but this might be different depending on the guitar that you're using. And then bass, I'm trying to keep it like in the middle. I'm removing a little bit of mids, and this is going to be depending on the guitar that you're using. It's going to be less or more. But usually for high gain tone, you always are trying to carve a little bit of space in the middle because it gets really crowded with the distortion. And there's like so many geeky explanations that I could go through, but I'm not going to do that right now because this is not the moment. All I'm going to say is like you have to adjust the gain depending on the guitar that you're using. Okay, and then we have a little bit of treble. Nothing crazy. And of course, I'm choosing the modern setting though because I'm making a modern sound. Then very important here in the back, and this will make or break your tone. You're going to listen to the difference right now. Right now I'm using the silicon diodes with the 6L6s in bold setting, right? And this is how it sounds. Listen to what happens if I change that to spongy. There's a difference in volume, of course, but the biggest difference that I hear is like how I hear the pick. This to me feels more natural. And then this, the rectifier is such a huge difference, it makes no sense. But you get the point. If your Mesa dual rectifier sounds like crap, maybe that's what you need to do. And then the difference between the tubes is not really that big, but let's hear it. I like how the 6L6s saturated that top end in the mid-range. It just feels a little bit more open to me than the EL34s. But maybe the EL34s sound better to you, so keep them there. Okay, back to the front. We're here. And then my next instinct is that I need a little bit more distortion, and maybe I would do this. And that sounds great, but I feel like it gets a little bit like flabby in the bottom end, so I don't want that. So let's try to turn that back down to whatever we were, I don't know, 7.7. This is really not important to be super precise. You're gonna have to adjust that depending on the guitar that you're using. And if you can tell my input section, I'm almost all the way up because that's how I have my system set up. I wanna hear the difference between different guitars, so I never touch anything. If I go to a single coil guitar, I'm gonna have less gain. For example, let's split this guitar and you're gonna hear what happens. Let's see the input. And that is basically because I don't want to overload my interface or my preamps or anything before I hit the amp. But of course, I want my amplifier to know that this is a Gibson Les Paul and that my pickup has like 14K and that I need to really hear high gain. But if I were to push it too hard or not hard enough, this amp would either be too clean or too dirty. And for example, in the case that we're using this dual rectifier, if yours sounds way too distorted and like super bad in the low end or whatever, maybe you need to adjust your interface. And I have videos on that, so I'm not gonna bore you with the subject, so you can just go find them. Okay, so let's move on. So what is next? I need more gain. I don't wanna push the amp because I noticed that it gets a little bit like flabby, okay? So what do? Go right here, and we're gonna get any overdrive or boost that you might want to use. In my case, I'm going to use the overscreen because let's say you don't have the max version of Amplitube, which you kind of should have because that's the best way to buy it because it's like at some points it's like super cheap. So don't buy it on impulse, wait for the sale seasons. You can buy it for very cheap. But in the case that you don't have it, I know that most people would have that overscreen because I think it comes for free. I would probably most like that Pinnacle Deluxe, but this would be too much if I start trying too many things. So let's just go to the overscreen. And as you can tell, we got really noisy, right? So that calls for our good friend, the noise gate. And I'm going to put it right in the first slot. Maybe around, I don't know, noon or something. All the way fast. The depth, I'm not going to mess with it. But now we got rid of that noise, right? All right, let's see what happens now. Yeah, we got more gain, but at what cost, right? That is nothing. like what we want. So I'm going to be a lot more conservative with the settings. I'm going to tone this down to maybe, I don't know, 2.3, whatever. And then the overdrive, I'm going to turn it maybe like to 2. A lot of people tend to turn the gain down and then they turn the level up. But in that case, I feel like it's just too much of a boost for what I'm trying to do. I don't want to change the character of the amp too much. I still want to hear that dual rectifier sound, but I want enough distortion, which is what we're trying to get right now, right? And as you can tell, this like really got rid of a lot of like the floppy bottom end that we had, but the tone is way too shrilly. So let's just turn it down to maybe like, I don't know, 8 or whatever, 776. That sounds good. I feel like we're getting there. There's a lot of more definition now. You see the difference? Yes, the bottom end got tighter, but I feel like we're missing a little bit of bottom end now, right? And that, my friend, is where we're presented with the choice. Should we like put maybe more bass here? Maybe, maybe not. All I'm going to say is that if you're pushing EQs in an amplifier, you're just not changing tone. You're changing gain structure, you're changing distortion amount, you're changing so many more things that I just rather do it with something else. And usually my first thing that I like to do is change that microphone. I already know that I have a thin microphone, right? The 57. So let's go see if that might be the reason. Let's hear it. Because it definitely got tighter and I want to keep that. So let's see what happens if we, instead of having that 57, we change it for something that I like more, like an 87. And let's hear the differences. Okay, I'm going to start in the 57. That to me is a way bigger sound. And since we have a controlled bottom end from the overdrive, the extra weight that we're getting here, I think it's fire. But now that we're here, let's check the room, right? Listen, we're at minus 34, okay? And right now we are using a pair of 87s, which is a great choice. And just for the sake of this video, I'm going to make it easier for you to hear. Listen to this. Pay attention to what happens on the stereo field. And now let's change it to this. Feel like the 87 gives you more clarity? And the 414 gives you a little bit more body. So you make your own decision, but in my case, I'm going to keep the 414 because I do want that extra body. Like, let's say if I'm just practicing at home. So I feel like it just makes your playing experience a little bit more exciting while you're playing. But for the record, I will keep it off. I feel like we're really getting close with this sound. But of course, there's a few things that we can make, and I feel like there's a little bit of extra bottom end, and there's a little bit of extra definition that I would like to gain. And I know how to make those two things with one move in Amplitube 5. Let's check it out. It's funny when I say it like that. Okay, whatever. Let's go here to our EQ sections. And right here, you have to see it's on the rack, whatever, the post effect section. I'm gonna choose an EQ81 because I love this guy. Boom. And the only thing that I'm gonna do right here is turn my high pass filter to 47. And that is gonna get rid of all my problematic frequencies. But as you could tell, we gain a lot of volume too. So let's turn it down a little bit, see what's up. That to me is already a great difference. I really love what this EQ does. And you're always trying to get rid of all that bottom end that you don't really need. And usually in a guitar that's tuned to E, you could go even higher to even 82. And let's hear what would happen if we do that. It might be like more correct maybe, but it sounds a little bit too clinical and I miss a little bit of like the kind of caveman aspect to it, you know, the troglodyte in us. I like that in a high gain tone, so let's turn it back to 47. I think that's enough. Because you still hear like that speaker cone going boom, 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 you know what I mean? That's what I really like. Then after this, just gonna give it a little bit of a push. I like to give it a push around 60 hertz on a guitar, just because of course we lost something, right? So what this is doing is basically just adding a little bit of that bottom that we cut. Let's hear it. That sounds really good to me. let's hear A and B. I hear that Mesa Boogie dual rectifier like coming through so strong. But of course we gained a little bit of volume. So let's get this saturation X guy, put it on class A tube. Very important, not on the solid state tube. And let's turn it down. I don't know, maybe a couple dBs. Let's see. Let's check this out. Okay, maybe I went a little too far. Let's go to 2.5. Still a little bit more. Let's go 2. I feel like maybe now that we're controlling the volume better, we can have a little bit more boost here on the bottom. Right, that was a little bit too much and I was having too much fun, which is always a good sign. Let's go get a few conclusions, my friend. So there you have it, my friend. A high gain tone, pretty controlled, pretty tight, Of course, there might be a few things that you want to change for your own taste and your own personal equipment, the headphones that you're using, the speakers that you have at home, whatever it is that you're listening through. You might need to do some adjustments, but I feel like if you see this process, it's very easy for you to understand, oh, I would have done this different right here. And this is your opportunity to go do it. And that's the reason why I do these videos, because I give you a door that you can actually walk through and make it your own world. You don't have to be a slave to whatever settings I give you. That's why I don't even share my presets. Which maybe I should. Maybe I should open like a membership section or something like that. Whatever. We're going to work that through. But what's important is that I show you all this process and that I give you my thoughts and what I'm thinking when I'm doing certain changes, giving you the opportunity to go see where my flaws were according to your own taste and go change them. What's the beauty? You can be like, oh no, that microphone didn't really sound good. I didn't like that 87. Go check some other one. Because if you know that that's where I failed, it's your opportunity to fix my mistake and have a better tone. So I hope you get a little bit of value from this, and if you did, please let me know that you're still here, number one. Definitely like, subscribe, give me a nice shout out, and overall, my friend, just have a great day. If you want to watch more videos, go watch this one right here where I show you what I'm doing with my input section so that it's easy for me to manage different amps with different guitars. Alright, my friend, I'm losing my voice. I'll see you right there. Thank you for being here.